Among the many upheavals of the era, the 1960s saw pop music and youth culture achieve a level of influence that may have seemed impossible during the sock hop era that led into the decade. Across rock, soul, and jazz, musicians elevated the album format from a way to upsell singles into a cohesive artistic statement capable of not only affecting tastes, but affecting social change. Here are the top 10 albums of the 60s. After abandoning gospel music for a secular singing career, Aretha Franklin spent much of the 60s making slick, moderately successful R&B. It took 10 albums and the help of a rock-solid Muscle Shoals backing band for her to reach her full potential and to claim the title the Queen of Soul. Classical music inspired In a Silent Way's ambitious structure, but it was the influence of rock music and electrifying performances by Herbie Hancock and John McLaughlin that scandalized Orthodox jazz fans and ushered in Miles's notoriously controversial fusion period. The Beatles' seventh studio album is the keystone of their catalog. Mixing jangly guitar pop with experiments in psychedelia and Indian classical music, Revolver bridges the Beatles' Fab Four days and their collaboration's more complicated later years. Backed up by the famous Flames and an already lengthy list of hit songs, Brown took the stage at the Apollo Theater on October 24, 1962, to entertain an enthusiastic Harlem crowd, and left with the gold standard for live albums. From the blurry cover photo to the epic dreamlike poetry of songs like Visions of Johanna, Blonde on Blonde was Dylan at his most inscrutable and ambitious, and cuts like Just Like a Woman entered the rock canon as soon as they were pressed onto vinyl.
Just like a woman.
Nina Simone's skills as an interpreter were never any sharper than on Wild as the Wind, but it's her own composition, For Women, that really shines, crystallizing the mood of the blossoming Black Power movement in one vividly emotional performance. After the psychedelic excesses of Sgt. Pepper's and The Summer of Love, the counterculture craved simplicity, and the Beatles delivered it in the form of a self-titled album wrapped in a minimalist sleeve. John Coltrane spent much of his life struggling with an addiction to alcohol and heroin, until he experienced what he called a spiritual awakening that inspired him to get clean. A Love Supreme is an attempt to capture that awakening in music that succeeds on a transcendental scale. Inspired by the Beatles' Rubber Soul and his copious LSD intake, Brian Wilson set out to create what he called the greatest rock album ever made. Pet Sounds helped to popularize the idea of rock and roll as a legitimate art form, instead of mere radio fodder. The most important album of the 1960s was also one of rock's most notorious flops. While The Velvet Underground and Nico was one of the noisiest records of the decade, its release was met largely with silence. It took several generations of bands inspired by its recklessly experimental energy for its brilliance to finally be recognized.
It's my wife, and it's my life, because a man to my vein leads to a center.